Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, latest developments in Magnolia Templating Essentials and Usability. Thanks for joining us. My name's Ben Price here at Magnolia, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of what we'll be covering in today's webinar, a few housekeeping items and things like that. All attendees are muted right now, but please don't let that stop you asking any questions. You can submit them using the GoToWebinar control panel, which you see there. And we'll do our best to answer as many of the questions as possible at the end of the webinar. 1 or 2 days after the webinar, we'll be posting a video recording of the presentation and sending links via email to everyone. So yes, we will be recording, and you'll get a copy of that shortly after the webinar. After the webinar, you will, in that email, also get some contact details for us here at Magnolia, so you'll be able to contact anyone for further information. This webinar will last around 60 minutes, and in today's presentation I'm happy to welcome Antti Hietala and Christopher Zimmerman from the product management team. They're going to be presenting updates from the last 2 Magnolia releases, primarily regarding Magnolia Templating Essentials, MTE, but also with various improvements to usability for authors and for ease of development as well. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the 2 presenters today, and I think Antti, yeah, it's all over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ben. Hello also from me. My name is Antti Hietala, and today we will do a webinar about the last 2 maintenance releases in Magnolia, 5.4.4 and 5.4.5. And while the main motivation for doing 5.5 was to fix a cross-site scripting vulnerability, these 2 releases are packed with useful improvements, and we want to show them to you. So please update your instances. It's always a good idea to be on the latest maintenance release. And a little bit about today's agenda. We will start by covering the Magnolia Templating Kit, how it makes templating and template development easier for front-end developers and developers who are new to Magnolia. Then Topher will show you a few improvements that contribute to better developer experience in resource loading and light development. We look a little bit about processed resources, explaining what they are and how Magnolia works with processing of CSS and JavaScript, show you improvements in the travel demo, and end up with a few usability improvements that make working in the page editor and in the configuration app more comfortable for editors. So with that agenda, let's start with the MTK topic. Topher, go ahead.
Okay. Well, you're probably aware of Magnolia Templating Essentials, and we're working towards our 1.0 version of Templating Essentials, and along the way we decided that it would be a good idea to actually break Magnolia Templating Essentials out into another new module, which is the Magnolia Templating Kit. So that's new in 5.4.4. Why did we decide to do that? Well, a key motivation was, for the templating kit that was before part of MTE, the first priority is to have a great author experience using the components, but the second priority has always been to have a great developer experience. And we wanted to make the templating kit available right away to any developer, whether they're a Java developer or a front-end developer in Magnolia. And by making it a separate module, we were able to make it a light module. And what this means is that it's just, you can either get it as a Maven module, or you can just get a zip file that has all of the resources for the components available as files. So you can get started with it right away, and I'm going to show that to you later. So that was really the main motivation for splitting it out, to make it easy for front-end developers to start. But we also wanted to continue and encourage this pattern of a module that contains a bunch of components for templating. So we already had that sort of with the STK. We know that many partners have followed that pattern, and we wanted to continue that pattern, which we think we've improved even further with the ability to do a light module. The other benefit is that it's always been our goal that Magnolia Templating Essentials be future-proof. But we all know that front-end technologies are changing at quite a rapid pace. So by splitting MTE out into this new MTK module, it means that MTE is really future-proof. Things are going to need to change in there much less, whereas changes can happen in the Magnolia templating kit. And then the final reason is that Magnolia Templating Essentials are just that. They're essentials. They're something you want in every project, whereas the templating kit, while we see it brings a lot of value, it's a collection of components that you may or may not want in your project, since it's so easy to create fresh components. So you might even use the Magnolia Templating Kit as a base for your own components, but you then have the final choice of what you include in your projects. So let's take a look at what is in the MTK and how it works. So I'll just switch over to a Finder. You can see I've just downloaded the 5.4.5 CE bundle, which is linked from the release notes. And I've also downloaded the MTK zip, which is also available from the release notes. And what I've done for light modules, so these modules which are just a collection of files, the default location for that would be in the web app directory. But in the properties file, it is very easy to configure a different directory, which is what I've done here. So the resources directory is now this light modules directory. It makes it very convenient to work with. So that's what I have here, my light modules directory. And again, here's the unzipped zip, which is just a collection of files. So you can see it's super easy to browse and see everything that is included. And you can work on them of course, in Maven, or you don't even need an IDE. You can use any text editor. So here we have that I'm using Atom. And we can look through the templates. We can look at all the components. So let's talk about a few of the changes besides being a light module. One thing we've done, well, as part of that transition to a light module, we don't use any models anymore, any model classes. Everything is in the templates. And again, this gives people checking out the components, they have the complete overview. Nothing is hidden. They can see how every single technique is working, and they can copy those techniques in their own projects. Also, just as a note, we condensed the 3 different teaser components into one component. This makes for a very nice author experience. You just have the teaser component, and then you can choose if you want to tease something external or an internal page. Yeah, and then another key improvement in the last release is an updated page. We had a very simple page template before, but the new page template is really a nice starting point for any page that you would want to do in your Magnolia project. So it's really a best practice starter page. We've broken it up into a few different areas. There's the HTML header, a navigation area, a main area, and a footer area. And if we look at the YAML, this showcases something new. The basic template is now using a new template class. This is the page template definition in Templating Essentials. And what this adds to your page is the ability within a page template to specify the CSS or JavaScript resources that you want to include. So this is a nice enhancement. So next I want to show you how the benefits of this light development approach and how you can really just get started right away. So let's go ahead and create one of these basic pages. I'll add a component to it, and then we can look at editing that component. So let's jump into Magnolia. First, we need to add this page to the availability. So I'll go to my site, templates. These are all the templates from the travel demo, but I'll go ahead and duplicate one of these, make it basic, and point to our MTK template. Pages basic. Okay, so now I've configured that on my site. I'll go ahead and create the page. And you can see our new basic template is available. And take a look at the page. Okay, here's the starting point. Very simple. This is this navigation area, then the main area and the footer area. And let's go ahead and add an HTML component. And we'll just say, okay, so now we have a very simple page. We've added a component to it. And now that we have that, I wanted to show you editing the component and that you don't need an IDE, and that's the advantage of having MTK as a light module. So MTK is installed in the MTK jar, but because we've placed it in our light modules, the files override the class path. So let's go ahead and look at the FTL, and let's just wrap this with a border, if I have that syntax right. And the other thing I'll change, so I'll change that, and I'll go ahead and change the dialog. I'll just change the label to super HTML. And now I can look in my console, and it looks like it picked them up. Yep, okay, it picked up. So now if I go into Magnolia, and I'll just refresh the page. Okay, now I can see that my howdy do is surrounded by a blue border. And if I edit it, you can see that the YAML change was also picked up. Now I have something called super HTML. So this just shows you with the bundle and with the MTK, you can get started right away. Okay, that's it for the MTK. Now I want to go to the next topic, the next related topic, which is developer experience. So there's a few changes. I'll show you something in a few things in the resources app. I'll talk a little bit about resource loading. I'm going to talk a bit about improvements to the template definitions that you can use the new IATNN mechanism now, and that you can actually, from a YAML definition, you can use a Groovy model class. So first, let's take a look at the resources app. You can close out of pages. Look at resources. Now there's two changes. One of them is that you can actually configure which directories should be shown from the file system. So this is another thing that you can configure in the Magnolia properties file, just like you configure the directory to look at. You can also configure which directories you just don't want shown in resource files, because it's nothing you want your developers or authors to be exposed to. And by default, we're filtering out like meta-inf, cache, doc-root, that kind of thing. But now you have the power to configure exactly what's shown there. But the other improvement is really nice. I go down to mgnl IATNN, you can see that we've added a new resource file type that's shown in the resources app. So typically, this has always been for the FTL files, for your JS, for your CSS, and for your template and dialog definitions. But now you actually have access to all of the translations on the whole system in every language. And just to give you an example of this, so this is the About app. We can change the title. The real installation information. And if I now open up the About app, we can see that it's picked up our language file right away. So obviously you want to be actually changing the resource files that are in your class path, but this is a way to see all of the templates, all of the keys that are available. And it also means that if you're doing light development, you could actually put an mgnl i10n directory also in your light modules directory, and you could supply keys that way without even needing to create a Maven jar. So that's the resources app. And then I wanted to mention a few things about resource loading. You'll be happy to know that this system has become much more robust. We had a problem before with class path loading, that if you made changes to your FTLs, those weren't being picked up by the system. Only changes to the YAML files were being picked up. This has been improved. There's a lot of other improvements. A concrete one is improvements to logging, so you can really see exactly how the system is picking up files. And my favorite improvement, now if you add a directory with files in it, it will scan all of the subdirectories and add everything that's there. So let's take a look at a few of these things. I've prepared another module, another light module called Webinar, that basically just adds one component called show version. So I'm going to take this webinar directory, I'll go ahead and copy it, go into my light modules directory, paste it in, webinar, and right away in the console we can see, boom, it's picked up the directory, it's picked up the files, it's picked up this new show version YAML. And just to demonstrate sort of the fidelity of what it's watching, if I just like rename a directory here, wait for the watcher to pick it up, we can see that it's modified the parent directory, the webinar, and we will get notifications about the rename as well. Okay, so those are the changes I wanted to mention about the resource loading. Really, the important one is that it picks up the subfiles. But now I can use that new module to show you two other improvements. So let's take a look at this component. So this component has a few interesting features. One of them is that it has a model class, and it's pointing to a Groovy model example. So, whoops. In my dev Groovy, I have created a Groovy script, and this is actually a model. And now this can be accessed from YAML. It just has one function, which is to get the Java version. Another thing I want to show you is that previously in your template definitions, you still had to use the old translation mechanism. But what's nice now is that I actually don't even need to reference the i10n base name, the title, the description. I don't need that anymore. So this makes my light development even lighter. And I can also demonstrate the internationalization. What I'm going to do is go to my samples. I've prepared a simple translation. I'll just bring that in. Into my light modules directory. Okay. And now you can see this provides just a very simple translation, show the version. Okay, so let's see this in action. We want to see this new component, so of course we need to make it available. So go to the templates, go to the page template, and we'll make it available here. Actually, we don't need that. This will be the show version. And we want the new, actually it's in the webinar, light module, components, show version. Okay, so we've created this new component, we've made it available. Now let's take a look. So we want to add that component and show the version, there it is. Choose it. And we have a component which is accessing the Groovy model to display the Java version, and note that it does have the translation that we added through the MGNL I18N. And just go back to the slides. Next, Anti's going to tell us about processed resources.
Okay, on the processed resources topic, if you remember in Magnolia 5.4, we introduced something called unified resource loading. And what this means is cascading style sheet files, JavaScript files, template scripts, and YAML configuration files are all considered resources now. They are all loaded the same way to make the developer's life easier. And as a developer, you can choose where to serve resources from. And as Topher showed on that resource files app, one app shows all these file resources in one place, except for one exception. And that's processed resources. And that's the topic I want to talk to you about today. If you remember, we sent a little questionnaire to the community asking, do you still like to process resources within Magnolia? Because the alternative is to process, for example, CSS file on the file system using tools like SAS or less. And the community was overwhelmingly in favor of processing in Magnolia and said, yes, please keep this feature. We love it. Don't take it away. So in Magnolia 5.4.4, we brought it back. We created a separate app as an intermediate step called Process Resources, where you can manage process resources. And by intermediate step, I mean we do eventually want to have only one app for all types of resources. So this is still on the roadmap. What you can use processes for is, for example, concatenating JavaScript files. You want to have multiple different JavaScript snippets in separate files for ease of management, but rather serve them in one big file. That's possible. Or you can produce cascading style sheets. So let's jump into a demo. I'll show you here what the processed resources app looks like. This app is in the web group, and there's the resource files that Topher just showed you. Processed resources is a separate app. This app is not bundled with Magnolia. As such, you need to download it as a separate jar or add it to your Maven dependencies, because not everybody processes resources. So we want to keep the clutter away from those who don't need it. Here I have a couple of examples, and I'll show you how processing happens. This file, sample CSS, is a typical static CSS file. You have some directives here, but nothing that you could process as a FreeMarker directive. But if we look at the child node using FreeMarker, here we demonstrate the power of processing files within Magnolia. A processed resource is basically a file that is interpreted as a FreeMarker template. So here's an example where we create a variable called text color and assign a value to it. And a few lines later in the same file, we then reference it. And the way you load or reference these files is a special path called resources. Here, if I'm requesting the top node, you'll see that this is the basic CSS file that didn't have any free marker. But let's request the subnode using free marker. When you compare this to what you saw earlier, the assignment has happened. We've substituted the variable here with the actual value. And the two primary use cases for this are, let's say that you have a multi-site scenario where you might manage a couple of different sites that have some common theming along them. For example, a chain of hotels. You want to have common corporate branding to these hotels, but want to separate each of them a little bit. So with the CSS file, you can easily substitute a little bit of something, colors or imagery, for each hotel.
Okay. So next, I wanted to show you a few of the improvements to the travel demo. We've been continuing to build out the travel demo, and we really wanted to show the public user registration and the advanced form features, and we've been able to include those in that scenario. So this is helpful for evaluators of Magnolia. It's also helpful for partners who want to demo the capabilities of Magnolia. They don't need to develop a separate demo. It's available there out of the box to really show the full range of functionality that Magnolia comes with. I also want to mention that the public user registration is also a nice something you can build off of for more sophisticated user demonstrations. So let's take a look at this. So now I'll go to the public site. You notice a few differences. So now in the top nav, we have a login and a register. This is all part of public user registration. And we also have like members, so for member content. So if I come to members, I see that there's access member content, exclusive member content. And if I try to access it, I can't because I need a membership. And I don't have a username yet, so I'm going to have to register. So I'll just register quickly. And all these forms, registration, the login form, password recovery, this all comes out of the box with the public user registration from Magnolia. Okay, we have this configured by default to not require any additional confirmation steps, but that is available from the module. So now if I log in with my new account, we have it configured to automatically redirect to that member content. And okay, in this demonstration, it's just one picture, but of course, this could unlock a whole set of pages or the site based on Magnolia user permissions. So that's the public user registration. Let's take a look at, here's that forgotten password link. Let's now take a look at the advanced form. So this is integrated into the tours. We have a realistic use case for it. So once I've found a tour that I'm interested in, if I click the Book Tour button, before we just had a dialog box pop up. Now we have a more realistic checkout process. And I want to emphasize that this really shows off all of the features of the form module. We have all the different fields, many validation options, and multi-step. So, and these also look very nice on a mobile device. They use the native mobile input for numbers and emails. Notice there's this, do you have special meal requirements? I'll say no for now, go to the next step. Now you can see I'm in a multi-step process. I'm on the second step, which is personal details. But we also illustrate something called a conditional step. So if I go back, if I had chosen that I do have special meal requirements, Then in the next step, I would have this conditional step, and I can enter in my requirements. Okay. Let's have this go to the next step. And we also have this confirmation and a summary, which shows all the information that I've input. There's also an upload field. I can upload my profile image and confirm the booking. Okay, I've received an email. And I see all of the information. This is just an FTL form that can be configured, as well as my profile image has been uploaded. So that are the two main improvements to the travel demo. Oops.
Okay, next we're going to look at a few usability improvements in the page editor and in the configuration app. I'll start by showing you how component choosing works in an area where only one component is available. So let's go back to Magnolia and fire up the Pages app. When I edit a typical page that has multiple components and multiple areas, I typically get what's called a component chooser dialog. So here I am on the travel home, and this is the main area. Let's add a new component onto the main area. I click New Main Component, and I get this dialog that you're probably familiar with. Here it seems that I have 6 components that I can choose from to add into this area. So that's the standard behavior. After I choose a component, then I go to the actual component dialog. The way this works in an area where only one component is available is demonstrated here in the footer. In a footer, I have a link list area which contains a links area. Within this area, I can only add a link component. So we're going to skip that dialog that prompts me for that list of components altogether, making it faster for editors to get to the actual component and content entry. So when I add a component here, I'm at the link component dialog right away. This may seem like a small improvement, but when you do add components all day long and repeatedly, then the time savings start to add up. And this has been requested for quite a few times, so that's now available. The next point I want to show you is on a page that is long. Let's take the about page here and edit it. And this improvement is about saving state and avoiding scrolling to where you were. The page editor now maintains state after you've saved a component. And this is very real when you go into an area that is very deep in structure. So here in the main area, we have a couple of nested areas. Here we dive into a column layout that has 2 columns, column 1 and column 2. Further in column 2, we have teaser components. So you can see that we're quite deep into the component structure, roughly in the middle of the page in terms of scroll. So let's edit this page. I'm going to change that text, what we believe that teases another page. Let's give it an alternative title here and save. Now what used to happen before is I was taken to the top of the page and I lost my selection. Now Magnolia stays at the exact scroll point where I was, and the same component is still selected. So the state is kept. And this is another big time saver when you have long pages and a deeply nested component structure. Let's go to the next improvement, which is duplicating components. Choose another subpage here, what we believe. On this page, I have a couple of rich text components, text and image components here. And when I select one, if you notice here in the action bar, I have a new action, duplicate component. What this does is it copies the selected component and places a copy right below it. So when I click it, I have now 2 of them, 3 of them, 4 of them. It saves editors a lot of effort if you keep adding the same type of component all over and maybe want to reuse some of the text to do small variations. So that's the page editor improvements. Let's have a look at the configuration app and what we've improved in working with trees. Here's the configuration app. I'm going to open a few nodes here to show a very long structure. Here now, if you look at the filters folder, it contains subfolders and nodes that scrolls way beyond my viewport. Here we are at the bottom of it. This improvement has to do with adding new nodes or properties and keeping them selected as soon as they've been created. So when I add a new property, the property is added at the bottom. I'm automatically scrolled to the relevant point, and the node is selected, pre-selected for me, so I can start typing values and naming it right away. This again saves times and saves nerves when you have really long structures. You are automatically at the point where you need to be for the next logical action. And finally, I want to show you the improved JCR browser. JCR browser is the tool that shows the internal structure of how content and configuration is stored in the content repository. And it's here in the tools group, so let's open the app. The primary improvement here is that you can now, within one JCR browser, browse any workspace. In the past, you had to configure a separate app for each different workspace, which tended to create some extra effort, but it also cluttered the group of apps. And really the same functionality of adding nodes or just looking at the structure is what you want to do. So here we're looking at the configuration workspace, but I can choose another one depending on my interest. Let's have a look at, for example, the website workspace where content is stored in pages and areas and components. This checkbox that says display system properties will also show you the properties that you typically don't see, such as what template is a component or an area using. And these system properties are typically properties that you don't want to change, so we've protected them from editing. If I try to edit one of those, the system will tell me that system properties start with JCR or Magnolia cannot be edited. Having a JCR browser that you can use to skip from one workspace to another is also useful, for example, if you're learning how the imaging engine works. You can come over here and have a look at what sort of image variations has Magnolia created as you browse the pages. Let's suppose that you're creating new image variations, changing their configuration a little bit, reloading the page. You can come here, delete the variations that Magnolia has created if they weren't correct, and try again. This section about JCR browser ends our presentation today. Let's go back to the slides. And we're open for any of your questions about either of these maintenance releases, or if you're curious on what's coming up next, fire away and ask. Ben, over to you.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for the presentation. I love those time-saving items for the authors. I use those every day, that's for sure. Okay, so let's hit the questions. There are some coming in. Please feel free to send them in now, and we'll go through them all. Okay, first question. Okay, is it possible to duplicate or share existing component between different pages?
Today, this feature is not built into the product, but it is on our roadmap. And we have done this enhancement for a couple of clients already. A couple of clients and partners have done it themselves. It's not complicated as such. So if you are curious of doing this yourself or need to do it for a client, get in touch with us, either me or Topher, and we can point you into the right direction. Eventually, this functionality will be in the product, but it isn't today, and I can't give you the exact time. But it definitely is possible and is already in use in some clients. And yes, to confirm the question, you can copy a component, paste it into the same area, paste it to another page, and when you paste to another page, the functionality also confirms that, verifies that it's allowed on that target page. You can even paste to another site. So in theory, this is very much possible. It's been done, and get in touch if you need this functionality urgently.
Okay, thanks, Antti. Next question, or it's more of a statement perhaps, but let's read this one. One big improvement, which is not currently documented at the moment, is using content tools in the workbench of an app. Is that something which is going to be documented perhaps, or is this more of a statement?
Actually, I'm not sure what the content tools are.
Oh, okay. Perhaps we need a bit more information about that to answer it.
Maybe the person who asked the question can type a little bit more information.
Okay, so if there's a question there, please just extend that a little bit for us. Okay, next question. When I'm adding a property, it would be nice to open a dialog to edit it directly, as in the need config.
That is nice. I agree. The need config, if you haven't seen that, check the blogs. Thomas and Jan Hederka made a very nice module with many nifty improvements to the user experience. Of course, we're aware of it. We love a lot of the improvements, but before we bring something into the product, we always want to make sure we're doing it in the right way and in a way that is consistent with all the other features and so forth. So I know it can be, you see these things in external modules and you wish it was in the product, and I sympathize with you. And thanks for the comment. Yes, this would be nice to have. You will see more of these features coming into the product. Let's put it this way. In fact, the duplicate components, I think, was originally implemented in the need config. So
yeah. If there are requests or suggestions to go into the product, what are the best channels of communication you like to work with? If there are special requests.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We have recently created a page on the wiki. Just if you search on Magnolia suggestion box, you'll find the suggestion box. This is the best avenue to make requests. So it plugs right into a Jira project of ours, and we are monitoring the suggestion box and tickets from the suggestion box after review. We do quite a review on the things coming in to validate that they make sense, to prioritize them. But that is a great way to make your request known. Anything to add to that, Antti?
No, that's very good.
Okay, thanks. I'm sure.
Otherwise, I mean, things. Sorry, just to say, I mean, things can come in via email, and then it's a bit harder to track the things coming in. That's why we created the suggestion box, to make sure that people's requests really got into a place that they could go through a nice process and wouldn't just get lost with one individual that they contacted.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Topher. Yeah, I think we can probably even include a link to that in the follow-up email for everyone. Next question, are the MTE, I think you covered this, are the MTE and MTK one and the same thing, or is the MTE the essentials and the MTK the extras? That together would have made the traditional STK, so maybe you can just elaborate again on the differences.
Yeah, exactly. That was kind of the point, a part of the point as well. They are two separate things. That's the change. They were all the same thing. Everything was in Magnolia Templating Essentials. So Magnolia Templating Essentials included some templating functions. It included some Java models. It included also all of the templates, template definitions, dialog definitions. And we wanted to split those things apart to make it more clear what was what. And so what's happened is that basically all of the components, all of the resources that were in Magnolia Templating Essentials have moved to a new module, which is Magnolia Templating Kit. All of the Java things, this new page model, so a few templating functions, these remain in Magnolia Templating Essentials.
Okay, thank you, Topher. Next question. I noticed the dialogues are kept simple. Are there any plans to expand a bit more on delegating multi-value transformers? And some FTL examples would be nice.
I'm sorry, so it's a request to have more sophisticated dialogues with transformers in them? Then I could say, if it's a request for that, I can say yes. We can be sure that. Sorry, I'm just looking at the question. Okay, yeah, we can definitely provide some more examples if that's missing in the documentation. Yep, thanks for pointing that out if you're missing something there.
Okay, there.
Yeah, this delegating transformers are used when you have a very nested field structure. And in documentation, we have this example where you're booking a flight, and the flights field consists of a couple of different fields. There's the airport that you're flying from, the airport you're flying to, and the seats that you're picking. And this can get quite complex. And in order to save the field values correctly, you would use what's called a delegating transformer that delegates the responsibility of saving up to the parent field. Why don't you comment on that page? Give us a use case, for example, where you got stuck, and we'll be sure to document another example or a more specific example for you. Maybe that helps. Okay, we have more information about the previous question regarding content tools. The user is saying, what I mean, if you look at the sub-apps browser workbench content tools, to configure those things is new, and it's very easy to extend apps with filters out of it. Topper, are you familiar with this topic?
I was not aware of that technical detail. So I guess it's a request for examples and additional documentation.
Okay, if that's not clear, then I think we need a bit more information, or maybe we can follow up after the webinar with the person asking the question. Yeah. I think that might be best. Okay, then still many more questions. Here we go. So really nice improvements. Great job. So well done, guys. Thanks very much. Bootstrapping XML is still needed for config changes. Will this also be moved over to YAML for light modules?
That's a great question. Yes, we do intend to eventually support bootstrapping configuration from a light module. Bootstrapping content from a light module. Honestly, I know that it can look like something that's missing to be able to bootstrap configuration. It means there's some things that you can't do yet in a light module, but with this light module approach, we really want to evaluate how things are done before we one-to-one reproduce what's possible with a Maven module. With Java and a Maven module, when you bootstrap configuration, you also have the version handlers and a lot of really fine-grained control of manipulating the configuration. One of the things we love about light modules, and we love about how the YAML are applied to the definitions, is that it's not persisted to the JCR. And this means that it's much easier to manage. You know, if you remove that module, there's been no change to the configuration. So once we add this ability to bootstrap content, all of a sudden, if you install a light module, you'll be changing the configuration in your system. So we know it's something that's needed. You should be able to apply content. In the meantime, there is a feature, if you're doing light development, which is you can create a Bootstraps directory in your Magnolia home or wherever you've configured it, and any bootstraps you put in there will be bootstrapped to your JCR. So it's not supported per se in the light modules yet. It is available, however, anyways, with this other mechanism, which doesn't require a Maven, a Java jar. And it's something we're actively looking at how we want to support it. And as to the YAML, yes, we definitely want to support the YAML configuration for bootstraps, whether it's in a Maven module or not. The YAML has so many advantages, it's so much nicer to read. But I really encourage you to, there is a wiki page about light development. I made a blog post recently about light development and what's coming. So that's on the Magnolia blogs. You'll get to this page if you follow up on that, light development planning. And this shows you exactly the current state of the plan. So from updating the MTK, you can see a lot of the components that we're still planning to work on, or some of the ones that are done. And then we've got some light fundamentals, such as doing decoration via YAML. So you'll be able, from YAML, to change configuration that's loaded by another module, and so forth. So that's a great resource. And I also want to say that if you look at this blog post recently, there's a survey attached, and if it asks you about the priorities for you with light development, and this is, besides the suggestion box, this is a great way to get your voice heard about what's important for you with the light development initiative in Magnolia.
Okay, thanks for that, Topher. We can include links to those as well in the follow-up email. I think this might be the final question coming up. So this is your last chance for questions. Yeah, it's actually been asked twice. So it's about processed resources. Can you talk a bit more about how we can use SAS with this? From what I gathered, I could use SAS within Magnolia and it would process it.
Okay. No, it's not supported out of the box by our processed resources mechanism. When Antti brought up the SAS and less processing, he was talking about that there is less of a need for Magnolia to handle processing resources, because since we developed originally that feature about 5 years ago, there's been such a surge in front-end developer tools like Grunt and Gulp to handle the resource processing. So our processed resources module, which was covered a bit, it enables you to essentially do FTL processing or template processing on your resources. That's what it does. So it's really cool in that it allows you to do anything. You can create a variable. Anything you can do with a template, you can do with a resource. So it's very powerful. It goes beyond, in a way, what you can do with SAS. You can really reach into the Magnolia internals and grab any kind of information you want. That said, we certainly acknowledge that it would be a handy feature in Magnolia. And Magnolia community members have already implemented SAS processing for Magnolia. We can include a link to that in the email that you send out, Ben. There has been a community module for processing SAS within Magnolia, so that's something you could add if you need it.
Okay, I'm making a long list of all these things we need to link to in the email, but that's great. So we're about there, I'd say. No, hang on, I spoke too soon. One final question. Yeah, we do have time. So will you introduce a templating like handlebars besides FreeMarker?
That is a great question. Thank you for asking that, and it's always interesting to hear the interest and where it lies for people. Personally, I would love to introduce a handlebars processor. It's not on the immediate roadmap. Community members have done a lot of cool things there. I mean, that's what's cool. We provide a platform and we provide the connection points, and there are time leaf for Mustache, and there is one for handlebars that I know that well, actually, I don't think it's a community contribution. I don't think it's available now publicly. I know that one of our partners did develop a handlebars renderer. Keep your ears tuned. I'm really pushing for that. I think that would, in my opinion, that would really dovetail nicely with developers. The more that we actually have community members requesting specific features, the easier it is for us to give those things high priorities internally. And I encourage you to fill out the light development survey that we'll send out in the email.
Okay, and on that note, with perfect timing, that brings today's webinar to an end, I would say. Thanks, Antti. Thanks, Topher, for those great presentations. Thanks to everyone on the webinar for sending all those great questions. We're going to follow up in the next couple of days by email with a link to the recording and all this various documentation and surveys. Yeah, with that, so I'd like to say thanks again to Antti and Topher. Thanks, guys.
Absolutely. Thanks to everybody who tuned in. It's great to have a chance to discuss these new features with you. And just a last note I wanted to say before, it's great for us. We didn't develop these features. Thanks to it's really cool to have these features that, to have these releases that really are so packed with beneficial improvements.